Come to me, little one. I will tell you of the cult of Rakdos. The Rakdos cult is a large group of hedonist, sadist, criminals, and psychopaths under the leadership of a powerful demon named Rakdos. The Rakdos cult combines a destructive urge with the desires for pleasure. Its members are sadistic and cruel simply for the fun of it. Extreme entertainments and personal enjoyments are their goals. They want Ravnica to bow to their whims, and anything that gets in their way or happens to be walking by is fair game. Rakdos the Defiler is the undisputed head of the guild, but beyond that, Rakdos lacks a formal structure. The cult members despise rule and anything that curtails their freedom, so there are no laws other than the precept to please their demonic master. They might attack each other on the street during the day, but then go to the same revelry at night. On the surface, the activities of the guild are run by loosely affiliated rings, each led by a ringmaster and each with its own sphere of influence, commodities, and cult followers. Selfishness and hedonism guide cult members' actions, and there is little thought to consequences ever. Members of Rakdos are driven by a desire to entertain themselves, and they don't care who they hurt along the way. Rakdos the Defiler has lived for thousands of years. When he was last seen, his unconscious body was dumped into his lava pit in Rixmadi. But now, Rakdos has awakened and is restored to his full power. He is in complete control of the cult of Rakdos, which is thriving and growing despite the low life expectancy of its members. While the proclivity of the cult members run the gamut between hedonism and destructive evil, Rakdos is at the far end of that spectrum. He embodies the destructive evil all in the context of twisted entertainment. Rakdos' age and origins are unknown. He is capricious and megalomaniacal. He wants everything to happen on a grand scale. In one moment, he can be seen roaring with satisfaction at the sight of his performers. In the next moment, he might order they be set on fire while he laughs cruelly as they burn to death. He has an uncanny magnetism that draws people to him, and he rewards his followers by catering to their twisted desires. Carnage and carnal pleasures, these are the currencies of Rixmadi. When Rakdos is awake, he is the undisputed center of attention. His whims are catered to, whether it is murder or mutilation, and nothing is spared to please the master. When Rakdos slumbers, which he does for days at a time, the cult members ratchet down the murder and chaos. Instead, the atmosphere of Rixmadi becomes political and manipulative as the blood witches vie for control. Then Rakdos wakes up, and it's an orgy of bloodletting and mayhem again. Rakdos does not think much of the other guilds. Azorius? How do you make an Azorius dance? Rip out his spine and make him into a marionette. The Golgari? Anything that spends so much time around fungus should be put out of its misery. The Isi? Too stuffy, but making bigger and better explosions is a reasonable way to spend your time. The Selesnya, pampered dryads pretending to be selfless, puts Rakdos in a very killing mood. Let's now take a look at the deck of the Rakdos guild, the Grinning Malice.
Welcome back. It is that time again. So let's take a look at it. I have two videos that I want to do, two videos left. I have this one, and I have this one. And if you watch the intro, you pretty much know which one I'm going to make, but I just want to rant for 2 seconds. Now, I've made the 3 first introduction videos, and those were good videos. Or at least those were good decks about videos about good decks. Now, this video or this deck is a cheap piece of shit. It's really it can be fun to play with, but it's really cheap. I mean, hexproof and unblockable? Eat a dick, please. And Grinning Malice. This is just cheap and stupid and a bit of a Timmy deck. But I will make the videos, and I guess I'll start with the Grinning Malice. So here we go. Yeah, sorry about ranting a little bit, but I feel that these two decks are a bit dumb. They have some mechanics working for them that make them. For example, this. Let's just talk about the Grinning Malice and not about Aura Cerns today. The Grinning Malice deck has some things going for it. It is incredibly powerful. It has some incredibly powerful removal spells. It has some insanely powerful creatures. And yeah, the whole conjunction of how the things work in this deck is pretty unsportsmanlike, if you ask me. Again, don't need to talk about Evolving Wilds. I've taken those out. Bloodchief Ascension is really, really good. You have a chance of running 3 of them, and I run 2 of them. At the beginning of each end step, if your opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on the Bloodchief Ascension. And if it has 3 or more quest counters on, every time a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, that player loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. I think that is pretty powerful. It's not OP, but if this card read that whenever a player discards a card, then I think that would be more along the lines of something fair, because this deck has some discard mechanics going for it, or some discard tricks and effects. The Death Greeter is, we all know it from the zombie deck last year. It's decent, nothing special. The Dragon Master Outcast, it could be really good, but since I'm not running since I think the whole deal about getting to land drop 6 and then having it spit out dragons each turn is a little bit slow. And I say this with a bit of irony in tone, I guess, or a bit of sarcasm, I should say, in tone, because when putting a 5/5 red dragon for free out every turn is slow, then you have something crazy going for you. This is the Goblin decks of hell, or the Goblin deck of hell. It's really, really crazy. It's a mixture between the last year's vampire deck and this year's Goblin deck, in my opinion, and also perhaps the discard deck from last year. It's incredibly powerful. Perhaps it's like the discard deck from last year, just much faster. So goblins and discard. So you have the Typhoid Rats. I don't think I run any of them. I think you get to run pretty strong cards from early on, so you don't really need that 1-drop, in my opinion. You have other 1-drops that are just as good. Goblin Death Raid is a little vanilla. If it has had haste, I would definitely run it, but then it wouldn't be a 2-cost, in my opinion. 3/1 trample. But if it was a 2/1 trample with haste, I would probably consider running it, because this deck is all about getting in fast. Onyx Mage is pretty good, but a little bit slow. I think the creatures that I end up running are strong enough as it is. Haste guy, or otherwise known as Suitstoke Kindler, 2-cost 1/1 with haste, and gives target black or red creature haste by tapping. I guess that's good enough, but still a little bit. I don't know. I think I don't want 2 steps between me and my creatures, and I think there are enough good creatures to go around. Or not enough good cards to go around in this deck. Spite Flame Witch is a 2-cost 2/1. For 2, it makes each player lose 1 life. Whatever, a little vanilla in my opinion. Ashenmoor Gouger, or Gouger as WMG Butchie calls it, is a 3-cost 4/4 that can't block. That's pretty good. I think I run 2 of them. Mainly because it's really, really cheap. It can't block, so that might screw you, and that's why I took out 1 of them. But it is still really, really good to get a 4/4 down, because 4 is kind of like the threshold has been pushed a little bit in the Magic 2013 format, because you have removal cards that does 4 points of damage directly at instant speed. Even I think at instant speed. Chandra's Outrage comes to mind. But aside from that, a lot of decks don't have that 3 points of damage removal. So I think the Ashenmoor Gouger is pretty decent for that. Plus, 4/4 board presence is strong, especially because you get it out early, and a lot of decks doesn't have too many things to deal with it except to use their valuable removal spells. So yeah, really good card. Hissing Iguana is I guess fairly good, but the way I run this deck is that I don't want to lose a lot of creatures. I don't run it in a way that I just throw my creatures away, and this makes it so that I don't plan on losing a lot of creatures, and that and thereby I don't plan on doing a lot of damage with indirect damage with the Hissing Iguana. So aside from that, it's a 3/1 for 3, pretty standard, nothing special. But you could definitely make the case in some decks or in some builds, perhaps you could definitely make the case that this would be a good card. You can build this deck to do a lot of sacrificing of your own creatures, and especially if you run the lower cost creatures and so on, then certainly it could be good. And in conjunction with Lysolda, the Blood Witch. Let's get that right, that name. Lysolda? I think it might be Lysolda or Lysolda. You decide. 3-cost 3/1, sacrifice a creature. Lysolda, the Blood Witch, deals 2 damage to target creature or player. See, also a very nice and controlly way of dealing with your opponent, and nice and controlly way of using your creatures. So yeah. Rockslide Elemental is, and people who played Magic 2012 probably would never think of anyone to say this, but in this format, it's a little slow. It's a 3-cost 1/1 first strike, and whenever another creature dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's too slow for this deck. It really is. It's not like back when you played what's it called, the Strength of Stone, and you could just sit there and control, and you would have your different creatures working together for you. You would have a lot of different removal and direct damage spells, and then this creature would get huge, and suddenly you would make these crazy attacks with your aura spells or enchant creature spells, and this creature would just rape whatever was in front of it. I think it's a bit too slow. Yeah, Scavenger Drake. I didn't run it in 2012. I don't run it now. It's way too slow. So yeah, actually it's about the same speed as Rockslide Elemental, except that it's more expensive. It doesn't have first strike. It does have flying, but who cares? Singe-Mind Ogre. I run 1 or 2 of them. Can't remember how many of them there is in the deck, but it's a 4-cost 3/2, and the reason I run it is because I have 2 main themes of this deck. I have crazy-ass creatures, and some of them being Lord of Revenge or whatever, a Demigod of Revenge, I think it's called. I focus my deck around that bunch of creatures, and the removal / discard deal. And Singe-Mind Ogre is a part of this discard mechanic. It doesn't make you discard, but it makes it so that once you've had your opponent discard a lot of cards, he has these precious cards in his hand that he doesn't want to lose, and usually they are high cost because it's his special cards that he's waiting until he has enough lands on board to cast them, and that means that you get to do like 4, 5, 6 points of damage to your opponent. Maybe only 3, but that's good enough, I would say, for a 4 cost 3/2. Being able to reveal a card at random. Of course, it's at random, but still, like, it's down to the cards that he actually has in hand, that he's saving, that he couldn't cast yet. So you get to reveal one of your opponent's cards and do damage equal to that card's converted mana cost. So yeah, I think it's not amazing, but it works for this kind of theme or mechanic that I want to get going for this deck. Wrecking Ball is really, really good. I'm not running all of them, as you see. I think I'm running 1 or 2 of them again, and it destroys target land or creature. That's pretty good. That will certainly slow an opponent down, and the fact that it's a creature or land makes it so that it's workable. It's usable in different situations. Bituminous Blast, I think I run 1 of them. I think 2 is a bit too much because it costs 5. It does have Cascade and it does deal 4 damage to target creature. But there will also be times where you have this in hand and you don't have enough mana, but you need to remove creatures, and then suddenly your opponent's creature is a 5/5 or 6/6 or something like that. You can't remove it. You can only do a bit of damage, and then you hope for the cascaded card to actually do that extra damage or whatever. It is really, really good, but it's not great because there are cards that like Terminate that just destroys a creature for without doing any points of damage, but just destroys it without it being able to regenerate. So I think Bituminous Blast is certainly a good card, but it depends on the situation, and I would much rather have more removal cards that are effective every time. So yeah, the Cascade is a draw though for me. Capricious Efreet, a 6/4 for 6 that has conditions. Well, you can suck a dick. Get the fuck out. I don't even want to talk about it. And that's the problem with these Jinn and Ifrits, especially Ifrits. I think it's called Serendip Ifrit, like one of the old cards. There was a card where you had to pay a mana every turn, or it did 1 damage to you, or 3 damage or something. And there's other of these Ifrits and Genies that really don't want to play with you. They don't want, when you get them down on the table, they don't want to help you out, so you have to pay them every turn. And yeah, why run these creatures? Because they're not that good. Like a 6/4 for 6? Are you kidding me? Like, are you really that desperate? At the beginning of your upkeep, choose target non-land permanent you control, and up to 2 target non-land permanents you don't control. There's a chance that it destroys one of your creatures. Who wants to gamble like that with their own permanents? Not me. So we have the Deathbringer Thoktar. There's 2 of them. I run none of them. Or there might be 3 of them and I run 1. I'm not quite certain yet. Sorry for being a little bit unprepared in that respect. It's pretty good, but it is also pretty expensive. The fact that it's a 3/3 makes it so that it makes it really easy for me to decide not to run it, because it's slow. Whenever another creature dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, remove a +1/+1 counter, and deal 1 damage to target creature or player. All of this is like 2-3 steps between me and doing damage to my opponent. So no. And I like the fact that you can ping an opponent, you could ping a creature, but I don't want to make my big guy small once I've spent a lot of time making him big. So I think that's kind of a waste of all the removal spells that I spent trying to remove my opponent's creatures. So no, thank you. Grave Titan, I run 1 of them. He's a definite or a sure thing in this deck. You need a 1, I think. Or you could take both out if you think he's too slow, or if you think he's too big. You could make it much more light on creatures if you want to, and make it just insane. But this card, when it comes to late game, I think you like to have a guy like this who's able to do some damage on board and who's able to buff up your side or to multiply. Apparently he has a lot of sex with other titans, so he just spits out guys every turn. Very, very cool. So yeah, there we go. Massacre Worm. Why don't I run it? Because it costs 3 black. That's why I don't run it. But this card is absolutely amazing. In the Obedient Dead, you wouldn't catch me not running it by any stretch, any chance. This card is so good, but it costs 3 black, and I don't want to be caught in a situation where I can't put it down on the table. And it's still a 6 cost. I would much rather for my Demigods of Revenge to get in there and do a lot of damage really, really quickly. And we pretty much touch on upon a theme of the deck, and that is to take out big guys. Rakdos the Defiler. I don't want to sacrifice half of my anything when I attack. It's a 6 cost, 7/6 flying trample and doing a lot of damage. If he gets blocked, my opponent doesn't sacrifice anything, but I sacrifice a lot of shit. So hell no, hell no. Why would I sacrifice my board positioning for an unsure thing? If it was like this, when Rakdos the Defiler attacks, sacrifice half the non-demon permanents you control rounded up, and when Rakdos not deals damage, combat damage, but when Rakdos deals damage to an opponent's permanence, or when Rakdos attacks, that defending player sacrifices half of his non-demon permanents he or she controls. Then I would consider running it, because then the playing field would be leveled. But this is too situational, so no thank you. Karvek the Merciless, you have 2 of them. It's a legendary creature. I don't know. Like, this is probably the only legendary creature you get to run 2 of if you, in Magic 2013. Pretty interesting. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, Karvek the Merciless deals damage to target creature or player equal to that spell's converted mana cost. It's pretty cool. Too expensive. If it was a 6 cost, I don't care if it was much lower in power and toughness. If it was much cheaper, and I don't care how small this guy would be, I would definitely run it. But it's too expensive, it's too slow. I want to be winning already. I don't want to be relying on this kind of mechanic at this point in time. Avatar of Slaughter. 8 cost. 8 cost. 8/8. 8 cost. All creatures have double strike and attack each turn if able. All creatures, not my creatures. All fucking creatures. What am I supposed to do with you other than put you in the discarded pile, or the pile that I won't run, at least. Din of the Fireherd is an amazing card, but it's way too expensive. 8 cost, put a 5/5 black and red elemental creature token onto the battlefield. Target opponent sacrifices a creature for each black creature you control, then sacrifice a land for each red creature you control. If you get to cast this card, you're going to do some damage. No doubt about it, but let's cross that bridge when you get to 8 mana. Seriously. Vampiric Dragon, 8 cost again, 5/5 flying. Whenever a creature dealt damage by Vampiric Dragon this turn, whenever a creature dealt damage by Vampiric Dragon this turn dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Vampiric Dragon, and you can ping creatures. It's an 8 cost, dude. That's all I have to say. So let's instead look at the cards that I chose to run. And for some reason it gave me 11 mountains and 6 swamps. I think it should have been the other way around. You can also see the curve. I have a lot of 1-drops. I have 8 4 2-drops, 12 3-drops, 8 4-drops, 5 5-drops, and 3 6 and above. So yeah. Try to keep it slightly light, but it has a little bit of that goblin thing going to it, Goblin Gangland, and a little bit of that Obedient Dead thing going for it, which means that you have those huge black creatures, or black and red dual-colored creatures, but you also have the quick creatures, the fast creatures that will buff your side really quickly or make your side impressive really, really fast. But you also have Bloodchief Ascension, already talked about, is really, really good. Reanimate makes it so that you might want to discard your huge creatures early because you can certainly do some damage really, really quickly. It's a really good card. It was, I don't know if it was in Duels of the Planeswalkers, the first rendition or the first iteration, but it was certainly in, I believe it was the discard pile, the Liliandra's discard pile. From 2012 is a really, really good card. Certainly, it's well worth the cost. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost, and then you just take a card out of any graveyard and put it on the battlefield directly. That's really good. Stabbing Pain. I run them. I run them because they're instants. They're not enchantments. They're instants, and they tap creatures and they remove some small creatures and so on and so forth. It makes it so that I gain a little time to get everything nice and going nicely. I get to stall a little bit around the two if need be, and I can take out some of his pesky 1/1s without using some of my more impressive removal cards. Vexing Devil is a card that does 4 damage to your opponent. No, you might say. No, it's a 4/3 creature for 1 and your opponent can choose to have it deal 4 damage to him, and then you have to sacrifice it. Well, I think I've tried that once, so that's a secondary effect. But this is it's a 4 points of damage card, direct damage card to deals. Yeah, it's a 4 points of damage card that only deals damage to your opponent for 1. That's how I see it. It's certainly much better than a lava axe, in my opinion, and much more efficient. And if you draw this late game, and your opponent has 5 life, and you drop this guy, it's certainly going to give him something to think about, because you're going to get in there with that 4/3 unless you have like a stacked side or something to that effect. Or it's going to hurt him a lot for you to drop it. So yeah, or for you to not drop it. So it's a really, really good card. It's I think it was from the let me think, Avacyn Restored set. So it's fairly recently that they put this in the Magic 2000 that they made this card available. But it's a really, really good card, and certainly it's something you want to run both of, because these cards, like, just one, if you drop it the first turn, your opponent is going to deal with it. He's going to say, okay, I'll take the 4 damage. That makes it so that you're at 20 life, he's at 16 from the first round. That's pretty good. Pretty good in my opinion. And if you drop it late game, you get a 4/3 creature because he doesn't want to kill himself with the 4 points of damage. So, yeah, definitely a good card. Demonic Tutor is great. You go get that Demigod of Revenge once your opponent has dealt with 2 of them. You just, next turn, you just smack the 3rd one down and you get 3 to attack with. One of the broken bits of this crazy-ass Timmy deck. It's insane. It's really, really insane. Terminate, I run all 3 of them. One of the best removal cards in the format. It's better than Murder because it only costs 2. Sure, it's a black and a red. It's not 2 black and a colorless. But how is this not better? Destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated? Show me a card that's better than that. Perhaps some of the exile cards, but still. Ashenmoor Gouger, talked about it already. I have 2 of them. Avatar of Discord, it costs 3, and I have to sacrifice, or I have to discard 2 cards to get it down on the table. But it has flying. It's 5/3, and it's pretty insane in my opinion. You discard 2 cards. Just if you know you're going to play this, just keep a land and some, like, what do we have? Just drop a Stabbing Pain. It's going to be a sweet trade-off. You get a 5/3 that's flying, and you get it early, so that's not bad. It's not bad, and it keeps my deck light. As you'll see, or as you actually see right now. I have, like I said before, 12 3 cost drops. So, yeah. Here's another one. Another one of the really, really good cards in this deck. It's almost broken in my opinion. I think it's been part of like the boss deck. What's his name? That damn dragon, which name I forget. But it's been part of the boss deck for a couple of years, and it might also have been in one of the. Oh man, why can't I remember anything? Sarkhan Vol, one of the Sarkhan Vol decks, maybe in the previous format or the format before Duels of the Planeswalkers, deals 3 damage to target player for 3, and that player discards 2 cards. What? Let me say it again. What? I think what's the name of it? Mind something costs 3, and it also makes that player discard 2 cards, not at random, like this card, discard 2 cards, and this is 3 damage on top of it. And you'll see, in conjunction with one very, very important enchantment, this becomes insane. I'll talk about it in a bit. Blood Cultist is cool because you get to. It's kind of like a nasty Timothy. It's I don't know a good related female name, but it's Vampiric Timothy. Whatever. It deals 1 damage to target creature, and if that creature dies, Blood Cultists get +1/+1. If one of your creatures dies, or if you're already terminating one of your opponent's creatures, just sap it. Just sap it. Make your guy a little bit bigger. It gives you options. It makes it so that just like with the Mindstorm deck, with the Razorfin Hunter and the Gelectrode in conjunction with your direct damage spells, you had more flexibility. That meant that if there's a 5/5 on board, you could throw down a Prophetic Bolt and ping him for 1. So you could get rid of creatures that are bigger than your spells would be able to take care of. And the same with here we go. Bituminous Blast. Like, it deals 4 damage. In conjunction with Blood Cultist, it would deal 5 damage, and your Blood Cultist would become bigger. So that's pretty good. Chaos Warp. I might end up taking 1 out, 1 or 2, 1 or both, I should say, because it is a gamble. But it is a nice removal, and it is a nice way of taking your small creatures and perhaps getting something better, or perhaps just getting a land, or perhaps getting an enchantment, or perhaps getting nothing. It is a bit of a gamble. Still, it is a nice fail-safe with options, in my opinion, and you get 2 of them. Plus, they work at instant speed. Heat Shimmer is amazing. You can take your opponent's creature, you can take your own huge guy, and just make a copy just for 1 turn and attack with it. That's pretty amazing in my opinion. Gives you a lot of flexibility. Very, very good. Pain Magnification. Here we go. That's the card I talked about. Whenever an opponent is dealt 3 or more damage by a single source, that player discards a card. Hey, wait a second. 3 or more damage by a single source? Boom, 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 boom. Blightning! 3 or more damage. That player discards 3 cards now if you have that enchantment down. That is really, really cool in my opinion. Pain Magnification is insane! So that's another reason to just, like, if you want to run this this deck really discard heavy, then yeah, you definitely want to run Pain Magnification. Ashenmoor Liege, I had misread this card first time I read it and thought it was really, really broken. It's a 4/1 for 4. Other black creatures and other red creatures both get +1/+1. And there's almost only dual-colored creatures. Almost only dual-colored creatures in this deck. So that basically means that most of your creatures are going to get +2/+2. Whenever Ashenmoor Liege becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, that player loses 4 life. I thought if it was dealt damage, for some reason I had gotten that into my head and just thought that. So if I deal damage to the Liege, and it dies, or just if it receives damage, it deals 4 damage to me. So I thought that was pretty broken. And then I read this and I thought, well, that is broken in a whole different way. This is one of the most powerful. Well, in this year's DLC, this is the most powerful of all the leashes. All the other leashes are pretty good to somewhat good, but this card is just insane. There is another card, and let me see if I can find it really, really quickly. It's called Balefire Liege. It's you can't see it on the on. Maybe I'll put some graphic in there for you guys, but it's called Balefire Liege. It's a 5-cost red-white leash. It's a 2/4, and it's red creatures, white creatures get +1/+1. But whenever you play a red spell, Balefire Liege deals 3 damage to target player. Whenever you play a white spell, you gain 3 life. That is more insane than this, but not by much. This card is pretty nuts, in my opinion. So, hold on, let me just see. Yeah, we're still recording. Oh, wrong one. Blazing Specter is a really, really good discard card as well. There's the Abyssal Spectre from back when I used to play Paper Magic, back in the olden times, back when we used to say olden times. We didn't. Don't worry. So, this is a 4-cost 2/2 flying haste. So you can surprise your opponent. He has that one card in hand that he just doesn't want to drop. Haha, what do you have? You have a Blazing Specter, and you force him to drop it. If you have an Ashenmoor Liege down and you have Pain Magnification down, you force him to discard 2 cards, because then it's a 4/4 and dealing 3 or more damage. That means that it's another source that Pain Magnification transforms into your opponent discarding an extra card. So that's pretty good. Hellhole Rats is really, really good as well. 2/2, 4-drop, and it's a haste. It has haste, and certifiably, your opponent has to discard a card in hand if he has one. And Hellhole Rats deal 1 damage, or deals damage to that player equals to that card's converted mana cost. Again, a discard card. Again, a card that works with the whole theme that I'm trying to put together here. Singe-Mind Ogre, already talked about it, and it fits the theme as well. Also a 4-cost. All of these cards are pretty insane. They're only 4 costs. That's pretty nuts. So yeah, Wrecking Ball. I'm running 2 of them. I think it's slightly expensive to destroy a target creature with this when you have Terminate, but the fact that it's an instant speed spell and it gives you the option to destroy a land is more than just a little good. Bituminous Blast, already talked about it. And here we go, the Demigod of Revenge. 5-cost. And this is the star of the show. Flying, haste, 5-cost, 5/4. When you cast Demigod of Revenge, return all cards named Demigod of Revenge from your graveyard to the battlefield. You can run 4 of them. How fucking broken is that? Your opponent can do this. You drop the first one early on. He deals with it. He go for the throats. The second one you drop, bing. Here we go. The second one, he kills it in combat. Fair enough. The third one, he uses another removal spell. Okay, they're all in your graveyard. Suddenly, bing, you drop this again. You attack for fucking 20 points of damage. How broken is that? It's just insane. If you're playing Dream Puppets, you almost wish for your opponent. Well, actually, I wish for my opponents when I'm playing Dream Puppets with this deck to just mill me, just mill all those Demigods of Revenge, because they're much more valuable to me when they're in the graveyard. So yeah, it's insane. It's really an insane card. It's very difficult to deal with a bunch of them, and it's a 5/4. So it makes it so that it's already quite tricky to remove. You need something that doesn't deal direct damage. For example, Born of Flames is going to have a tough time dealing with Demigod of Revenge, unless, of course, he drops his last one, and then then you have. If you're playing Born of Flames, you cast that flame wave, then you're going to destroy them for good. Fair enough, but you would need something that exiled them in order for him not to get that advantage, or you would need like big flying creatures to deal with it. It's a very powerful card, and alone it's pretty powerful. I would say it's not just good, it's not just great, it's powerful as hell. But in conjunction with the other three, it's fucking amazing. So yeah, Defiler of Souls, again, an insane card. It costs only 6, and I say only 6 because its ability sounds more like a 7 cost to me. Flying 5/5 for 6. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a monocolored creature. That means none of your cards, because, well, there's the Grave Titan, but how many other monocolored creatures am I running? There's the Vexing Devil, and that's it. You could run more. You could run that stupid Ifrit, or the Scavenger Drake, or the Rockslide Elemental, or whatever. But when you don't, when you only run dual-colored creatures, this card is just so amazingly powerful. Really, really powerful. The Grave Titan, we all know this big bad boy, so no reason to talk more about him, but he's really, really good, and I would definitely run at least one of them, because it gives you options. He makes dudes every turn you attack. He makes dudes when he comes into play. Why not run one of them? Malfegor, he could be really, really good. It's a 6/6 for 6, flying, and when he enters the battlefield, discard your hand. Each opponent sacrifices a creature for each card discarded this way. If your opponent just removes him the round after, it is pretty much all for naught, as they say. But yeah, it all depends on the situation. He can be really, really good, and he can deal with a situation where you can't get rid of some of your opponent's creatures, for example, hexproof creatures and so on. I'm looking at you, Azorius, or whoever's running those hexproof trolls or shrouded creatures or something. But yeah, I would definitely run him just because he's a little bit tricksy. But this is the way that I run Grinning Malice. I think it's very, very fast. The biggest creature I run is I think I have I run 3 6/6s. I don't run any 7 costs. Sorry, I run 3 6 costs. 2 6/6s. 3 6 costs. I don't run any 7 costs. No 8 costs. I run a lot of I run 5 costs, which is the 4 creatures, the Demigods of Revenge and the Bituminous Blast. I have more creatures than not, and yeah, it's just a bunch of badasses in this deck. So I kind of hate this deck, but at the same time, who can blame people for running overpowered decks? Who can blame people for running, for example, goblins? Because it works. It fucking works. And the same with Grinning Malice. It's a great fucking deck. Sorry for swearing so much, but it's a really, really good deck that just works for you. There's no doubt about it, but it's also going to be a pain in the ass. And just like before the DLC was released, we all felt that every time we get that victory against goblins, yay, we won against that stupid goblin deck that people either feel they have to run or run because they're so fucking cheap. It's the same thing with Grinning Malice. It's just too good. It's too good. Cheap and good, has the most powerful removal, has the most insane creatures, and it has a lot of discard. What else do you want? You're taking away all of your opponent's opportunities and all his potential creatures, all of his potential spells and so on, and at the same time you're just bashing his skull in with creatures that are way too big for their casting cost. It's cheap and it's effective. That's how it works. So yeah, I hope you liked it. If you're a fan of Grinning Malice, if you're a heavy metal fan, I'm sure you like it. We've seen that with the WMG crew. Either way, it is cheap, it is good. If you like it, well, here's my build, and I think it's effective. If you don't, get prepared to get destroyed, because this build destroys. And I'm sure you could put it together in different ways that also destroy. So yeah, this is, like I've said before, this is not a deck building guide, but it is my 2 cents on how to build this deck without having too much experience with it yet. There might be a deck building guide. There probably will be a deck building guide in the future, but so far this is how I built the deck, and hope you liked it. If you did, please leave a like. It helps me out. It makes sure that I see that people want more of this. And if you have something to add to this, or something where you want to hit me over the head and say, no, that's not right, or that's just a comment. If you want to leave a comment, please do. I love to chat with you guys. So yeah. Before this this video runs way too long, as they have been in the past, I will cut it short and say thank you for watching. I'm Multimeteor. Laters.